Ladies and gentlemen,
boys and girls of all ages. That's right.
It is us. We are
us.
here.
We are here.
In the house again.
I said
to Hollywood, where do you go? Hollywood said, where do you go? Hey, man, I got a confession. I went again last night and I saw that.
I'm going to go see it in IMAX. I don't blame you. I think I'm going to go IMAX.
My name is Kirk, and I saw IMAX
twice. Hey, if you don't know this yet, my name is Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the madmen of masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For you. We have these conversations all the time, but we having these conversations for you.
You get to see behind the scenes.
We speaking to you. We speaking with you. And this is absolutely your home for healthy masculinity. That's right. You know, we started having these conversations a long time ago, and now we're like, man, let's have these things online. And then we're like, you know, man, let's go a step further. Let's have these things like on the air. Let's do this stuff like over the airwaves, in the airwebs. You know, not even in the interwebs, but on the airwaves.
We're on the interweb, airweb.
Interwebs, airwebs, and all that kind of
webbing all over the place. We're like Spider-Man.
We are absolutely on KLDC.
12:20
a.m. in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, baby.
Right.
Denver, where you at? And we also worldwide on the interwebs, or worldwide everywhere, man. We on like YouTube, we on everywhere, man. We just spread everything. Facebook, anywhere you can get us, we about to be.
You're about to get tired of us because we're gonna be
everywhere. Just gonna be everywhere. We're gonna be like that credit card, everywhere you want to be, everywhere you don't want to be, everywhere you thought you might want to be.
We're gonna be there.
Hey, man, I brought this up to you, man, and you know, this topic, man, this topic today is it's going to be kind of, you know,
we're going to need some seatbelts.
We're going to stir some stuff up, and we're
going to
figure out, you know, we're going to figure out who's in the squad and who's not in the squad on this one. And, you know, rightfully so, this topic is going to come off a little red pillish in the very beginning. You know, it's going to come off, you know, but we speak in man talk. This is real stuff from a man's point of view.
It is.
But, you know, we obviously our intent is always to bring things full circle and to speak to a world of connectivity and a world of relationship where we can do this thing better, man. Where we can do all of this thing better. So JBK, man, here in this first segment, man, I got a thing, man, and this thing, man, I've noticed this as a trend, and you know, it kind of began to get under my skin, and man, I noticed that. You know, we speak, you know, not only with men, with to men and encouraging men and all those kinds of things. And so a lot of times we'll post something or I'll post something that is somewhat challenging to men maybe, or, you know, maybe calling men to a different, you know, to a level of examination, to look in the mirror. We had our episode on looking in the mirror. And when I notice when I post those things, there's never really kind of much pushback in terms of, you know, men need to get that. Yep. Then I noticed that when I see something posted or when I post something to maybe encourage women to look in the mirror and to self-examine and to say, you know, this is kind of how we are, how we can be, maybe how we can do things better and all those kinds of things. I noticed a trend, and that trend was somewhere very early in the comments, someone, and normally, you know, a woman that I maybe know or don't know, but there's a comment from a woman that it's a theme, and the theme is, you know, it goes both ways. And to me, it reads off like it's conditional, almost like, yeah, I hear your feedback, or yeah, and not even just for me. Like I said, if it's some kind of something encouraging women to dig deeper or whatever, but I hear this theme, and the theme is like, yeah, it goes both ways. In other words, like, yeah, what you just said might apply, but make sure that men do the same thing because we need to. And so it comes off as conditional, man. And it's almost like sometimes I feel like it's hard for women to take the collective criticism that men kind of get asked to take on a regular basis in terms of self-examination and looking at ourselves. And, you know, it's almost like we're forced to like look in the mirror and like, hey, y'all need to change, y'all need to fix and all this other kind of stuff. And so first and foremost, like I said, man, I mean, what's your thought on that? What's your feedback? Am I crazy or
no? Yeah, I think this falls into a lot of the sign language. You know, shout out to the late great Kevin Samuels, but no relation, but you know, doing the same thing, working on the same, you know, squad. But anytime I have seen on any of the shows, podcasts in person, and if it's being brought to us as guys, like, hey, you need to, and you guys, and we're meant to take it because we're guys. We're supposed to suck it up. However, in my experience, in my own personal experience, when that is turned around on the ladies and say, I've had a coaching client, a female coaching client, and we were talking about dating and relating and sex and what happens when who's responsible for the pregnancy kind of thing. And I was like, well, yes, ideally the man should also be responsible. However, you're the one who, as the female, will carry the baby. So the ultimate responsibility falls on you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it was, well, shouldn't it go both ways? And yes, and all those things. And it was the same sort of like, I accept that there is some responsibility. However, I won't accept that responsibility without it also being on you or as a man. And so I've seen that where there's not a lot of accountability taking when it's like, well, look at your actions and your decisions and how do you get to this place? It's not like, oh yeah, I made those decisions and that's on me.
Yeah.
It's I did, yes, and but.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about he did and they did and all these other things. So there's not a lot of like look in the mirror and say, yes, I made that decision and it's on me.
And, I think, and again, I mean, we admitted right up front this is going to come off red pillish in the beginning. We got 4 segments that we're trying to shoot for here this afternoon. But, and I think this is a common experience for men, just in a common level of frustration too. It's like, it's from a man's perspective, it seems like when we're in these discussions with women that it can come off as either he or we, but never me. Right. And sometimes I've had the conversation with women, where they all men are this and this and this and this. And I dated a man that this and I dated another man. He did the same thing. I dated a man. He did the same thing. And I'm like, well, maybe the problem is your picker. Maybe the problem is not every man out there. Maybe you just keep picking bad men. Maybe it's not all of us. Maybe at some point, it's maybe your picker is broken. And so I think this is kind of a common experience with men in terms of like, man, I mean, at some point, will women kind of step up and take some accountability for some of this, this experience that we have relating to one another in between genders?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the first step in any 12-step program is acceptance. It's like, okay, I accept that I have an issue. Yeah. I accept that I have a problem, whether it's addiction or trauma or something that is getting in the way of my happiness and creating the life I want. Yeah. And if you are not able to or refuse to take accountability and say, yes, I chose those men, I chose those relationships, I chose that career, I chose to have my career before my family, and now I've hit the wall and I'm freaking out because no man wants me because I spent all my formative years as a up-and-coming young lady in the career world. You followed that path. And we talked about that on one of the last podcasts about you can have whatever you want. Also have to pay the price though.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of this yes and it goes both ways things come from is that there's not a lot of training or accountability to a lot of ladies because I don't want to say it's not your fault. I mean, you're grown now, so it's your responsibility, although raised by nice guy dads and single mothers and to tell you you're a princess and you can have whatever you want and all men need to bow at your feet. Sorry, that's not reality. And there comes a time when you have to say, who am I? Where am I? And where do I want to go from here? And that takes looking in the mirror and going, I am accountable for my decisions. I am responsible for these decisions I have made. Yeah. It's not on anybody else.
And that's on an individual and a collective basis. They say about 70 or 80% of relationships are ended by the woman. Right. And so, and so I think when I am in conversations with, with a woman and I'll ask, okay, how honest do you want me to be here? Do you want me to, on a scale of 1 to 10, like how real do you want me to be? And, if they're not ready for the reality, if they're not ready for the, and most of the time, pretty much without exception, they all say, give me a 10. And I'm like,
then you do.
Yeah, you probably don't want a 10 because if you want a 10, then, your first response is going to probably be some cancel culture on what I'm about to say. Because, a lot of times, men, we have to operate from a reality-based perspective as opposed to an exception-based perspective or an ideal or a fantasy or a feeling, kind of approach to life. And so, our level of 10, a lot of times, you ask a man what he's thinking and he says nothing because, you know, like you can't handle the truth, kind of. You know, I mean, that's the whole point of it all. And so I think, you know, I think in terms of that individual accountability and group collective accountability from the female side of things, and a lot of times we're talking about not only what we've experienced, you know, with just women across the board, but especially, you know, for those that maybe in the dating, you know, the dating world, dating life, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, come on, men can't be every problem that's out there, you know, in terms of our culture. Could it be that modern feminism has gone too far? Could it be that, you know, that maybe, you know, I need to look in the mirror and figure out why I keep ending up with loser men in my life? Those kind of things, I think, are hugely responsible in terms of the whole level of accountability.
Yeah, I think there's been a disservice done to a lot, especially the younger generation of women now coming up because of the, you know, blue pill, nice guy stuff, and you know, all ladies are princesses, and you don't have to do anything, and every man should fall at your feet and throw out the red carpet, and you don't have to provide anything. You know, you are worthy just by being yourself, which to an extent is correct. We are all snowflakes and butterflies, and we all have our own uniqueness we bring to the table, and so in that way we are worthy. Although when it comes to guys, we have to provide. We have to, our worthiness comes from what we provide, what we contribute. So when it comes to reality, that goes both ways. And so it's not just a ladies thing. For the guys, it goes both ways. If you want to be held accountable and want to create what you want, it goes both ways.
And that's totally it. I mean, you know, on one hand, we're talking about the common response of it. It goes both ways, quote unquote. But it's like, if it goes both ways, then maybe everything needs to go both ways. And that includes saying, man, I need to hold the mirror up to myself and saying, okay, how do I need to change? How do we need to change as a group, as an individual? And if men are expected to do that, then, you know, then absolutely, you know, at some point women should say, you know, we need to kind of, you know, we need to get our poop in a group as well. And, you know, and have some honest conversations to, you know, what has the last 30 years of the women's movement. And there's been a lot of good, obviously, a lot of progress in a lot of ways, but, you know, could there be some things that we could be doing? I'm having, you know, the hypothetical conversation of you know, women to women, but
well, and always results. Always look at the results.
Yeah.
Often harsh, always fair. How's that working for you? What are the results you're getting from this thought process or what you're putting out in the world? And if you are not getting the results that you want, something needs to change on the ingredient side, on the input side.
Yeah, and you know, again, I think, you know, I think if we want to live in a seesaw kind of thing, you know, if we want everything to be the absolute same across the board, then you know, then yeah, I mean, these are the things that we're gonna have to kind of look at right out of the gate. And so I think, you know, man, I think right out of the gate, we're kind of coming at it, you know, right between the eyes. And obviously, you know, we don't have any personal stake in everybody's life and all that kind of thing. We want to advance, you know, the common movement of us all together, you know, back towards one another. And I think this is one of those ways that I think we need to do that.
I think the alarm went off.
I think the alarm went off, and so
break time.
Break time. Let's take a break. What do you think?
Pause for the cause.
Let's take a pause for the cause. This is the Mad Men of Masculinity, baby. All over the web. All over the web. Your home for healthy masculinity. Denver, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. and all over the World Wide Web. We will be right back.
And we're back. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 12:20 a.m. Your home for healthy masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity, baby. The Mad Men of Masculinity. That's what we are. That's what we are, man. That's what we do.
We're mad about this. We're crazy about this. We're passionate about this.
Kendrick, man, we are doing it. We're passionate about this thing. And that's the cool part is, you know, we're willing to kind of put ourselves out there, put ourselves on the proverbial maybe even
target on the forehead,
put a target on us and say, hey, you know, but these are like real conversations that we have, real conversations that men have, real frustrations that men have, real perspectives that men have. And I think, you know, these are things worth kind of putting out there for everybody to, you know, keep the meat and spit out the bones. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you hate what we're saying, then skip on to the next one, and maybe we'll say something nice and Disney-like, and fairy tales, rainbows, and unicorns, and all those kinds of things. But
for that.
those things never change anything. And so we're talking about today. We're talking about accountability, and we're entitling this "It Goes Both Ways" as what tends to be the
common response.
The common response. And I said this last night. I was having this conversation too, and I'm going to do this. Obviously, I can't do it now because people don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm going to post on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm going to do 2 separate posts. First post I'm going to say is toxic masculinity needs to go away.
Okay.
And then sometime later, I'm going to post toxic femininity needs to go away. I can almost guarantee.
I know how that's going to go.
You can almost guarantee that on the first post, everybody's yeah. Oh yeah, blah 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 blah, and everybody's gonna be high fiving and co-signing and all that kind of stuff on that one. I can almost guarantee on that second one, it'll probably either be crickets or pretty soon there'll be a whole lot of yeah buts, or it goes both ways.
Yeah, but it goes both ways. There wouldn't be toxic femininity without toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. And come on now, you're being a victim to the environment outside you. And guess what? You cannot control the environment outside you. The only environment you can control is the one inside, in between your ears. So if you're still following that thought process, guess what? You're playing a victim and you have no control. Yeah. And what we want to do as the Home for Healthy Masculinity is help all men and women regain control.
Absolutely.
I think I wrote a couple books about this.
Yeah.
You can live your life through a point of choice. Yeah. But that point of choice comes from number one.
Yeah.
Accountability. That guess what? Your choices have repercussions.
Yeah.
Whatever you do decide, whatever you do want, you can have. Yeah. You have to pay the price. And also, everything that is a blessing is also a curse. So you can have the career, you may not have the family. You can have the family, you may not have the career. You can have the 6-figure man, he may not be home.
Yeah.
You can have the trophy wife, she may not be very bright, or a homemaker. She may not know how to cook. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the reality of things. And we do not like to focus on the dualistic side of things. We want to be more holistic and go, we're looking at both sides, the masculine and feminine side, the accountability side for both sides. However, in reality, whatever choice you make does have, there's the inertia of cause and effect. There is an effect to whatever you have chosen. So choose wisely.
Yeah. And, and to that point, man, I think when we talk about this whole, kind of mutual accountability kind of thing, or, it goes both ways on the flip side is, just like, okay, you want us to be accountable. We want you to be accountable. Just even in the example I just put out there, like, man, toxic femininity absolutely needs to go away. And I believe that's running more rampant today than toxic masculinity. Yeah. I think toxic masculinity, first of all, I think that term is kind of an oxymoron, because I think if it's toxic, it's not masculinity. And so, but I get it in terms of common language and, lexicon and all that kind of stuff. So just to reach people where they are, the idea of toxic masculinity, I think as much as that is destructive to our culture, to relationships, to community, to family, to relationships, all those kinds of things, I think toxic femininity today is getting more and more out of control, because I think it's going more and more unchecked. And I think the reason why I say toxic, quote unquote, masculinity is probably trending in the right direction is because I believe that men have kind of self-reflected and said, hey, we need to fix this as men. Gillette did commercials about it, and all this other kind of stuff. And, everybody wants to hold the men accountable. And I do believe that men should lead. And I do believe that men should be the tip of the spear. And I do believe that ultimately, we are more, I'll say, even responsible. That's just my belief. I believe that if we're called to lead, then leadership has some level of responsibility that followership, may not have. Followership has responsibility. But point being, I think, it is incumbent for us to address toxic masculinity, quote unquote, as men. I also think at some point you look in the mirror, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna say it. What happened? What are they gonna do? Right? I'm gonna say I believe that when you get certain public figures like a Jada or an Amber or I don't want them to sue me, right? So I don't want to say the names. But anyhow, I think there are examples in our culture in popular media, actresses in Hollywood, that kind of stuff. Not that Hollywood is an example, but they are bright lights. I think there's some examples of toxic femininity that we've all seen lately that's causing all of us to lose. And I think that's happening more pervasively on the quieter levels of every street and in every alley in America. That kind of stuff needs to be addressed by women. Somebody needs to call that out.
Yep. Well, and to be accountable, to be logical, to be linear, to be as men are, we are held accountable almost from where to go. Yeah. And we are told that our actions have consequences. And in many ways, that is us, told to us as little boys towards little girls. We are taught as men how we're supposed to treat women. Although I have not met too many women who have been taught how to treat men lately.
Valid point.
There is a lot of a lack, and it could be, if we look at toxic femininity and a lot of what we see in the media, a lot of what is being promoted and portrayed in society today. If you look at the results, and I think that's where this, it goes both ways. Things really comes back is when you make a point and you show statistics that nowadays 80% of divorces are filed by women. Nowadays, most middle-aged women are unhappy for the first time in 100 years. More unhappy than men. There are all these different things that we see, and we see the repercussions of. However, when we bring those up, if we state the statistics, we say, here's the numbers. What we get is, that goes both ways. Yeah. Or there's not a looking at it and go, oh, yeah, okay, I see that. Or, okay, I chose my career instead of a family, so it may be hard for me to make a family now that I'm 40 or whatever. These are the things that we see so much that it doesn't make a lot of sense for us as guys, but I think it's because we were raised as guys that your life is about providing, about creating. It's about making choices and being held responsible. And I think there's a lack of responsibility, or maybe not responsibility, but maybe a lack of accountability for a lot of ladies today, especially coming up. We see it. And so when we shine that mirror, hold that mirror up and say, hey, here's the result of your decisions. Here's the result of your actions. What about that? And then what we get is, that's because of this. I'm a victim of that. I didn't have a father, or my mom worked, or it's society's fault, patriarchy's fault, which what I noticed too is, and I've seen this, I'm not the only one to say it, I've seen a lot of other guys say this too, is that a lot of what we see when we want to talk about toxic femininity is that they're focusing on maybe 1%. The 1% of the high earners, 1% of the really toxic men, but the other 99% are us. We work. Yeah. We go to work, earn a living. We're looking for a woman to provide for, to create a life with. What we're struggling with is finding a woman who wants that as well, or who is willing to accept that role.
And I from guy perspective, from guy perspective, and pretty much everything we say is our opinion, right? I mean, we're here behind microphones with headphones on, so we're not here, speaking, doctoral theses, whatever. This is our opinion. We're just two dudes with opinions, right? And so, I don't think we should have to preface everything we say with, in my opinion. Well, duh. I mean, we're here. This is basically talk radio. It's all our opinion. You can agree or disagree, and it's okay. We disagree with each other sometimes. And so, so the idea of all of it, I mean, this is our opinion. And, whether somebody likes it or not, either way, it's grounded in experience. Mm-hmm. It's grounded in kind of something that has happened repeatedly, or we've seen, or we've experienced, or any of those kinds of things. And so, and like I said, I've seen this cycle kind of over and over again of what appears to be, or what feels like, women co-signing on anything that a woman does, even if it's something that is, like the stuff that she just lost that $15 million lawsuit on, the stuff that, that was like deplorable, like that, like no human should do some of that kind of stuff. And it's And it's like she's realizing you got to be held accountable for your words and your actions.
Yeah, she's got a really strange way of making the bed. I
Dude,
don't know if
I
I
mean,
don't know.
she
if I
made
would
it something. She
hang
made
around.
it stink. I don't know. She made it nasty. She made it not whatever. But I mean, that's
That's not disrespect.
that's kind of the at some point you got to be held accountable for your words and for your actions. And I think that's one way that it has just popped up literally in the media that we see that, okay, maybe it's time to start. If we're all going to be equal, if we're all going to, if we want
to be accountable too,
then we all got to be equally accountable. And that includes, okay, just because you had a bad experience with a man doesn't give you free reign to do or say whatever you want about that man or to
hate all men after
or to any of that kind of stuff. And so, I think that's the most recent, probably one of the most public examples here recently of, okay, this is bad girls behaving badly and being held accountable. Yep. And so we can't, a lot of bad men have been held accountable, but, that goes both ways too. I mean, we can't have it goes both ways when it's just about you looking in the mirror. Yep. I mean, maybe it goes both ways because you need to look in the mirror sometimes.
Well, and I think that's the biggest issue that most men are having, and what we seem to get their feedback a lot is that every time I meet a woman and I show her my boundaries, I tell her what I want, she just throws it back at me. Well, that doesn't fit, or I won't accept that, or what are you trying to do? Control me? What are you, the evil patriarchy or whatever? And that's not equal accountability. Right. And that's what we, as the Home for Healthy Masculinity, we're not doing these things to push red pill agenda. We're here to talk about equal, healthy accountability.
And nobody, the male narrative today, the modern male narrative, really doesn't get told. Like, it doesn't get, like, here's what we're experiencing. Like,
we're underground because
this is real stuff. And it's like, and so who's talking to men?
Who's talking for men?
Who's talking for men? We talked to, I think we've talked about this just maybe even not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. Just even in places like churches or the media or whatever, like, who's talking to men specifically, and who's addressing the male experience, and who's addressing these kind of things that guys talk to. And so I'm like, well, let's go across the middle, man. Let's take the tough one, take one on the chin, and let's talk 4 men and 2 men.
And we're going to come back and talk about that point, because there is a lot to be talked about why there's a lack of, positive masculine accountability, or not accountability, but promotion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely something that is, it's kind of a phenomenon today. It's almost, that's why we started off with, what does it mean to be pro men? Because it's like, we're not hating on,
to preface what that means.
We're not hating on anything. Like, we're just here because we believe that not too many people at all are actually describing what it's like to be man, or speaking to men, or any of those kind of things.
Well, and that just shows why we're here, because the fact that we have to say what pro men means there's not a lot of people out there even know what that means.
Boom. Segment break. All right.
Pause for the cause.
Pause for the cause. We'll be right back. Mad Men and Masculinity, Baby Mile High, Denver, Colorado, KLDC, 1220 AM, and on the interwebs everywhere. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Mad Men and Masculinity on KLDC 1220 AM on your radio dial, your home for a healthy masculinity.
We're back like the sequel of Top Gun, baby. We are back. We're back with a vengeance.
Yes.
We're back with a vengeance.
So
I saw it twice.
You did see it twice.
Man,
I'm jealous. I'm gonna go to IMAX. I'm gonna blow it up.
Oh, that's I was gonna go to the IMAX joint, but man, there's what I don't like. First of all, you can pull up all the seats, right? And there was only like one seat available, here on this row, one seat available on that row. Right. But then, like, all the seats down front by the screen was wide open. And I'm not going to break my neck sitting in front of a big old IMAX screen to see Top Gun Maverick, man. I mean, and so, I'm looking forward to it. I might do it again.
That make you seasick if they're that close, boy. Tell you
what about one of those Dolby ones where the seats vibrate and all that kind of stuff? That might be kind of cool too.
That 4-dimensional thing, yeah,
that might be kind of dope, man.
So anyway, we were talking about
what were we talking about?
Top Gun, and get back to our regular
schedule. Man, that's pretty cool.
It was a good show, though.
We
might have to do that.
I was the only thing. I don't know. Obviously, not. The only thing that I didn't like about the movie, in a weird kind of way, nobody died.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe that's the guy part. Maybe that's the guy in me. That it was the guy story.
Yeah, there was the one guy who should have. And I guess Disney took over. I'm not sure. They decided
I don't
he's
know,
going to
man.
make up at the last second and save himself. I don't know.
But either way, I was like, man, that was one of the heartstring moments of the first one when Goose died. So not that I, necessarily want death, although several other planes got shot down, so people did die in the movie. But
just not our people.
Point being, it's like I didn't get to lose a character.
Well, he even said that somebody was going to die on that mission.
I thought somebody was going to die.
Anyway, all right, we went off on a tangent. So back to our regularly scheduled program.
Let's hold ourselves accountable. Hey, it goes both ways.
So we're going to have to hold ourselves accountable
because it goes both ways.
On a tangent. So anyway, we were talking about the lack of positive masculine, even media or information that's being put out there. One of the reasons is, and we've talked about nice guy syndrome and where that came from. Although nowadays you look at even in schools, in churches, we talked about, what is it, 85% of teachers are feminine.
Yeah.
Unless there may be some gym teachers or whatever, maybe a music teacher here and there, but there's a lack of males teaching kids, so they don't get a positive male role model. You have to get out to the workforce before you get an abundance of men, and then of course you're in the workforce. Yeah. So it may not be a positive male influence because you got a job to do, they got a job to do. Yeah. So that is something that is a negative, and one of the reasons we're so passionate about being here talking to y'all is that there is just a lack of positive male influence. There's just a lack of communication on the masculine side, and I think a lot of it having to do with, I don't want to say, third wave feminism. I don't want to say it's toxic. It's just the way things have started. It just started off as a good thing, which most things do. Yeah. And then it went a little haywire. And because there's nobody holding them accountable, because I'm guessing because of Me Too and cancel culture and all these different things, it is very dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah.
To call out, especially a popular or well-known female out in the world now, because they may call, hit the button, call the feminazis and the troops and cancel you.
All of a sudden you cancel. Hey, I think that whole idea of speaking out against or whatever, it is almost taboo to speak out against any kind of anyone, especially anyone with a spotlight. In terms of just like I said, man, we all watched the Oscars. We all saw what happened. And we all saw what happened, and it was pretty daggone clear that everything was cool until there
was that side
until
eye.
Homegirl was like, then all of a sudden, he lost out. All of a sudden, the whole mood of the room, whatever, because of toxic femininity. And toxic femininity looks like toxic masculinity. And especially when it goes unchecked. I think, and ironically, I've had more than enough conversations with more than enough women that don't like the whole modern feminist movement, that don't like the fact that things have gotten so far in one direction that it's like, wait a minute, we're out of balance. I don't hear anybody talking about it, but I mean publicly, but I've had these conversations with women like, no, I don't want to be that. Like, I don't want to be masculine. I want to be feminine. I want, I don't want the stuff that they're telling me I need to want. When Beyonce said where the single ladies at, she was married. And when she come out to the left, everything in the box to the left, when her man stepped out, she stayed. And so I'm like, wait a minute.
She's waiting for that 10-year mark. She wants half.
She wants half. I mean, but point being, I think, where the whole pushback on this common narrative, it's like, I just don't. I think it's severely out of balance. I got a great point, but I want you to say something in response to that.
Well, and to that point, I think what we are seeing, and I think this is just the normal Western American media. Yeah. They highlight the 1%. So they highlight the most toxic. They highlight those things because that gets the ratings. That's what they want to see, the drama. They want to see all this crazy chaos and stuff. And so you're right. We've had these conversations, and I admit it. I've gone down the red pill rabbit hole. I have gone way deep and come up the other side going, I don't want to hate the ladies, but I keep watching these things and make me want to hate the ladies. And then when I go talk to ladies, I go, wait, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just 1%ers, the crazy ones that keep getting all the social media attention and all those out in Hollywood that are just losing their minds.
Yeah.
When you can talk to a real woman.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't like that either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we do what we do, because we want the real women to start being more vocal,
Right.
the real men to start being more vocal, and we can maybe drown out and put a stop to, or at least some resistance to this toxic narrative.
I love that whole idea that, we don't hear from the real, we do hear the loudest, ugliest voice, whatever in the room. I mean, like I said, as much as I've heard a lot of women say, no, I don't want that. Like, I don't,
So many
I don't want to
are
have to be every man,
so many
every
of them
woman.
are going, I want a masculine man. Where are all the masculine men? Well, they're hiding in their houses because the media has scared them to death. They don't want to step outside and talk to y'all.
And at the same time, in terms of just the normal men, the regular, I don't know how many women I've told, you know what? Not every man wants you to have a completely smooth, Botoxed up forehead. I mean, and filled up, lips and face with whatever injections.
Believe it or not, ladies, we prefer natural.
We like natural. We like, some of us like curves, but we like natural appearances and all those kinds of things. Like, you don't have to go out and do all that stuff that Hollywood says and all the stuff that you do to impress each other. That stuff doesn't impress us.
We
and
want to
so
see facial expressions and jiggles and curves and things.
And so these now, again, we all have our preferences, and some of us, some like it more than others, and it is what it is. We're ain't no hate, no none of that kind of stuff. Everybody's got their thing.
There's somebody for everybody.
Somebody for everybody.
Changing whatever that is.
And that person might not be for you, but if you got to go do all kinds of doctored up stuff to get a person, or in this case, to get a man, that's probably not the man for you. And the man, if you got to do all kinds of, whatever, if you got to become something that you're not just to get a woman, which, it's probably the first time in history, I think, that men have had to become this and that to get a woman, because I think, things are so skewed.
Well, to that point, it made me think of something that made me laugh, because it always makes me laugh, but you get out here as a guy and all you hear is, I want a real man, to a lady who has fake hair, fake nails, makeup, got a girdle on, wearing 6-inch heels, and she wants a real man. It's like, ain't nothing real about you, honey.
Yeah. So I think, I think in the whole idea of that loudest voice, man, we got to be careful what voice we're listening to. But the whole idea of one-sided accountability, that's not accountability.
That's projection and blaming.
It is. That's like saying, and again, to me, that's like saying it's conditional. And to me, that's like saying that marriage is 50-50. And if you've ever either been in a long-term marriage or have had marriages fall apart and have done your work on you, you'll realize that 50-50 doesn't cut it. You got to be 100-100. And you got to be willing to look in the mirror. You got to be willing to say, okay, what is it about me? Even in the relationship space these days, we're looking for somebody to do this for me and this for me. What if you look for somebody that you can serve? It shouldn't be looking for somebody to fill all of your needs. Maybe at some point when we begin to shift and turn the mirror on ourselves and to be self-accountable first, before and without somebody else doing their thing, then maybe when we get into relationships, it's not conditional in terms of, well, I'll forgive you when you forgive me. When you stop being mad, I'll stop being mad, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, we hit the nail on the head right here. So we're going to take this, it goes both ways, and flip it on its head, because when it comes to relationships, real, healthy, natural relationships, it does go both ways. Yeah. You're both in servitude. Mm-hmm. A marriage is not about what you're getting, it's about what you're giving.
Yeah.
And if you go into any relationship thinking about what you're going to get, I think that's why so many men nowadays are so deathly afraid of marriage and going down that road, because the system is so skewed towards the feminine. And I've had several girlfriends or lady friends who told me that when they were leaving a marriage and they wanted to be amicable, their lawyer, because they money making business, was like, just say you were scared of him, or just say this, or just make up this story, and you can take half. You can have all his stuff, and he's going to pay you for the rest of your life. And you wonder why men are gun shy nowadays. Yeah. Well,
yeah. Although Johnny Depp just got $15 million.
Like most of these things on the news, I'm like, what are they covering up? Why are they drawing so much attention to this that doesn't mean nothing? Like, what else is going on?
Yeah. But and even that, we trash sales, even though it trash sells, man. It is, and we
all love TMZ, we love
No,
TikTok.
that's
we
why
love TMZ.
that's why we like watching Cops. That's why we like watching 600-Pound Life. I mean, because we like to think, well, there's somebody worse than me, you know, and so that kind of stuff is just it tends to be garbage. But yeah, I mean, especially in the area of relationship, man. Like if you're not willing to start in the mirror, you probably shouldn't be in a relationship. And if you're not willing to say on a daily basis, you know, how am I doing? You know, how am I doing? Not how they're doing and how they make me feel and what did they do? What have you done for me lately? Remember that? What have you done for me lately? Right? I mean, dude, I mean, these kind of things are, you know, these kind of things are ingrained in our culture. And it's like they're so anti-accountability,
so anti-healthy.
Anti-healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When you actually take accountability on personally and look in that mirror, if you have struggled in the past with relationships, if you have struggled if your picker is broke and pointed upside down, that's where you want to get in the mirror and have some accountability because really it's not about what you get. It's about what you give. And when you make yourself as happy as you can be, when you vibrate at that level, when you get to that level of your own inner happiness and then shine that out, like we did that episode about shine your light, shine your own happiness, shine your own stability and confidence, then you'll get that person that matches you. But when you're just out there looking at what you can get, you're not going to get what you want to get. And maybe if you do get what you want to get, it's not going to last because there ain't no man out there that's going to say, well, I gave you the world and I got nothing. Yeah.
And man, I've had to look in that mirror and say, okay, my picker has been broken my entire life.
Well, I've been single since 2013.
And it's like, my picker has been broken, dude. Like, you know, and it wasn't until I started to examine self that, you know, that I'm like, okay, maybe I'm the common problem in every dysfunctional relationship I've ever had. So,
common denominator number one over here.
Absolutely. So,
pause for the cause.
Pause for the cause, man.
Time to take a break.
Time to take a break. Mad Men of Masculinity, baby. Mile High City, KLDC, 1220 a.m. But on the interwebs, everywhere. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Mad Men of Masculinity, 1220
Mama, them
AM,
bad men are back
ALDC.
again. Mama, them men are here again. They
Your
here.
home for healthy
They
masculinity.
here. Mama, they knocking at the door again.
And Mad Men's back.
Oh, yeah. Man, this is fourth quarter, man. This is fourth quarter time, man. It's time to bring
we
this
gotta
thing
go
home. Time to bring this thing home, man. All right.
So what did you get out of this? I know we've kind of gone up and down.
Well, first of all,
rabbit hole. What are you taking away?
First of all, I want to land right here, and the reality is, you know, in the context of today's conversation, we're speaking mostly to the female narrative of it goes both ways. Meaning, before I accept any kind of accountability for who I am or what I am in culture and in relationships, then he needs to do this. And you know, the whole idea of you can't just sit with the feedback or whatever. And so that's where we're coming from. And here's my take on this. Women don't want full accountability. And here's why you don't want that. Because do you really want to start having your daughter sign up for the draft? Or have a $250,000 fine and a 5-year felony? You know, do we really want women to have to meet the same physical standards as men in order to get into the military?
We tried that. It didn't work.
Do we I mean, these are the things that, again, if we want everything, we had a conversation a long time ago. Maybe we should have begin on equality versus sameness and that kind of stuff. Equality versus equity, because, I love my 4 kids all the same, my 3 daughters and my son, but I love them differently because they're daughters and my son. I love my son way differently. And so it's like, we don't be careful what you ask for. Maybe we don't realize, do we really, really, really want that? Like, shouldn't you guard, the inequity in some ways? Equality, absolutely. Access and opportunity, all those kind of things. But do we really not want, do you really want full accountability where you really want to take on that responsibility? Probably not.
Well, and I think that's the biggest issue I have, and I've seen with a lot of the third wave toxic femininity that's been broadcast over the airwaves and through TV and media, is that they want equality of opportunity. Awesome. I'm fine with that. When they start talking about equality of outcome, no, that's personal. That's about what you do. It's about the work you put in. That's about your results. And so when this quality of outcome comes out, that gets a lot into the old Marxist communist narrative of we'll all throw in and then spread it out evenly, which, come on, it's human nature. There's never an even spread. So when we're talking about that, it's yes, we all want equality, but we have to realize and get real with the fact that men and women are different.
Yeah.
And if we use the exact same standards, and the military has tried it. Yeah. When they did Ranger School, they sent 4 or 10 ladies through Ranger School at the same level as the men. None of them passed. And then they started giving them waivers and started changing the requirements and things so that they could get some to pass.
Yeah.
And this is documented. Don't look at me and say, I'm making stuff up. It's documented. It's out there. And so when that's why they had different requirements for the military.
Yeah.
And just like Kurt was saying, do you really want selective service to include your ladies, your daughters?
Yeah. I mean, that's a trip to think about. Like, seriously, like in a day where we haven't had a draft in 40, 50 years, I don't know, whatever it was, since Vietnam, I guess, my 18-year-old son, well, now he's 19, but either way, he had to register for the draft or it's a fine and a felony when my 3 daughters don't have to. And so, if we want to change the context a little bit and say, okay, well, let's pivot this to a dating and relationship kind of thing. What if, ladies, every time you connected with a guy on your dating app, your dating website, what if his expectation was, you know what, this goes both ways. So when we get together, I'm going to need you to pull out your card first because it goes both ways. And I'll pay after you pay, after you put in. And I'll tell you what, back when I was kind of in the online dating scene, I was way in the red in terms of my out versus my in terms of somebody offering to pay. I mean, if we wanted to, it goes both ways, then maybe you need to start, how will you feel when men, and maybe I think men probably already have to a degree in that dating space of like, okay, you didn't need to start to chip in on this thing. It doesn't feel so good when everything goes both ways. You can't have only the things you want go both ways.
To quote the great Bill Burr, you ladies are just cherry picking. You want all the good stuff. Oh, $1 more an hour, I'll take that. Oh, have to work overtime and pay child support? No, I don't want that. That's icky. Yeah, well, it's like that's what we see. And of course, I get it. We all want the best, but everything comes with a cost. So if you want equality, then guess what? I'll pay the first time. You pay the second time. Or we go halvesies. I mean, that's what we're talking about, but that's not what you want.
And this is a tough right between eyes conversation. We know that out of the way. We know there's exceptions, and we know that there's this. We know we get that. We're talking about on a macro level. We're talking about 51 out of 100 kind of thing, and so we know these are very
majority,
absolutely tough conversations. But ultimately, I think where I tend to land on this whole thing back to men and speaking to men. We speaking for men. Let's speak to men. I mean, this is why we need to absolutely look in our own mirror and know who we are, because we can't expect the other gender, if you will, to largely say, okay, that I need to take responsibility. We need to be able to say, okay, I know who I am and what I am, and I need to make sure I don't put that validation in the hands of anybody else. We need to be able to know that I am the man. We need to become the highest value man that I can be. And have my level of male accountability such that my expectation level is set correctly. I have a level set in terms of what I'm expecting from the other gender in relationship and dating and every other kind of way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so as every other red pill, masculine focused guy out there, you become the best man you can be, and you will attract that woman who is going to be your equal or is going to be your match. Yeah. I mean, and the main thing is, number one, find your why. You got that Y chromosome because you need a purpose. What a man on a mission does not settle or curtail his forward progress for a woman. Right. And if she's a right woman, she won't want you to. She wants to help you fulfill that purpose forward. And so if you focus on your accountability, your value, your mission in life, then you'll be headed in the right And I think what I know from my experience, and Kirk may back me up on this or not, because I didn't have my purpose, because I wasn't living in a life of value and mission, I was not meeting the right women because I was just floating around. I'm just in the doldrums. I didn't have a direction to head.
Right.
And you got to be heading in your direction, climbing your mountain to meet the people on that mountain, on that path with you in your lane.
And I'm even at the point now where, relationally speaking, I don't want anybody that is looking to be my equal, because that means that, okay, we're both butting heads at this point. I believe in submission. I believe in mutual submission. I believe in non-conditional mutual submission. I think if it's conditional submission, it's not mutual submission, because mutual submission is I'm pouring in. It's the yin and the yang. I'm pouring into you as you're pouring into me, and it becomes a circle or a cycle kind of thing. I don't want somebody that says I want somebody that says I want you to be my leader, and have that expectation for me, and therefore I step into that role as the leader, and we have that dynamic between us. Do I, as the leader, absolutely, do I get in the floor and wash feet when need be? The word samurai means one who serves, right? I mean, yeah, as the leader, those that I am leading are going to be well taken care of, and I'm going to break the wind that is coming at us, so that the one behind me doesn't have to have the same forces coming at her that I do. And so I'm not even to the point where I want somebody that says I want to be your equal. I want somebody that says lead me, and then us serve one another, not conditionally, but mutually.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to get real about this, I mean, you look at the word hero or servant or slave, they all come from the same derivation of the Greek of service, or service. I'll have to look it up and I'll get back to you in the comments. But basically, you are going to be a slave.
Right.
All men, if you've read or listened to the myth of male power, all men are slaves to their woman, their child, their purpose. All women are slaves to the children, their man, their household. We're all slaves and servants to each other. And I think that's what we've forgotten, and what we've gotten away from is that we think that I have to give it all and I've got to be the hero, but I don't give anything. I just give. And you have to come in to relationships and honestly into life with the idea and the mindset of service.
Right.
We're all in service to another, to the world, to society, to culture.
And absolutely. And how I serve, I need to show up in a position of serve with a heart of service. I need to show up at work. I need to show up in my home, in my family, in my relationships. I need to show up in my community, in my church, in my friendships. I need to show up like, how can I serve? If you are on the relationship scene or the dating scene or whatever, maybe it'd be a heck of a paradigm shift if we showed up in the dating world like, how can I serve? What? I mean, we need some sound effect.
We'll get some sound effect.
I mean, it's like, what if we showed up like that? Like, how can I serve, as opposed to how can I be served by this thing? Then maybe our whole dynamic changes, and maybe it's not, maybe it's not it goes both ways. Maybe it's, okay, yeah, what can I do to serve this the best that I can? And then out of faith and out of experience or whatever, then we look to serve. We look to even, it's not even like you receive, it's like you actually get back. It's not you're giving, you're returning what you got. But what if we showed up with a heart of service as opposed to a heart of conditional servanthood? Servitude.
Well, I mean, just think about it in a logical sense of go to work and talk about what you're getting without going there with a mind of service.
Right.
See how long you keep that job.
Mm-hmm.
Go to your friends and mooch off of them without reciprocating. See how long you keep those friends.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's such a hard concept that we're all here in a position of service, especially in relationships, which that doesn't mean just romantic. That means friendship, business, family. Yeah. We're all here to serve.
So we got to take that feedback. We got to take that thing. We have to say, man, what can I do? Like, and if there's something that, what can we do? What can
I do for you?
And to level up the whole thing, not a conditional thing, not as like but before I hear that, I need to know that you're going to do that and some of that comes from scarcity and fear, by the way. It's like, I don't want to be hurt, so I don't want to put it out there if I know, Yeah, but when you went to your job, you worked for a couple weeks before you got your first paycheck.
3 weeks
Right.
usually.
Right. And so it's one of those things that, it's not too far off. And so, these are just concepts, man. But man, somehow we landed, and speaking of landing, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. And we're bringing this in for landing on runway 23 left. Put your
Seatbacks and tray tables,
tray
and
tables
full
up, and
upright positions.
tighten that seatbelt. It was a bumpy ride, but we're coming in for a smooth landing here on Mad Men Radio.
KLDC 1220 AM, your home for healthy masculinity.
Peace!